The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
We're very, very concerned because this is very out of character. And we can't get in touch with his wife, which is probably the more concerning thing.
I can hear kids inside, and I swear I think I heard one yell.
What's changed since the last person I talked to?
There's a body. There's a body.
There's a body inside?
Yeah.
Shock and grief in Ohio. A dentist and his wife shot to death inside their home. This morning, family reacting to the surveillance footage of that person of interest. Plus, our investigators are weighing in on whether this could have been done by a professional killer. We're talking about the code and the calls, breaking down every clue. Plus, from trusted therapist to convicted child abuser, brand new documentary on Netflix is shedding light on the world of Jodi Hildebrandt. So was she the driving force behind years of abuse? Also, accused killer Nick Reiner back in court today to have his arraignment. We'll talk about the newest developments ahead of his hearing. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Wednesday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some court? It's that time where we get you all warmed up and ready to go for the big day ahead on Court TV Live. So grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. She better fight hard now because once the jury hears the evidence, her goose may be cooked. I'm talking about defendant Corey Richins. The story of Corey and Eric Richins, as told by Utah police, reads kind of like a true crime novel. It's about marriage, money, and murder. Utah police say that this mother plotted and poisoned her husband to death and then went on to make herself look like a grieving widow to the world by writing a children's book on grief. Richins maintains her innocence, and we should expect to see a defense on innocence grounds with a legal theory that Eric accidentally overdosed. The next 2 days will be critical. Corey Richins' attorneys will be fighting with all their might to keep certain evidence out and put other evidence into this trial, which, by the way, my friends, is set to start in February. They've got numerous pending motions. They're going to be argued today and tomorrow, and Court TV will bring it all to you. In close, I'll just say that I sure hope and pray that those 3 little boys are doing okay. You know, it's bad enough they are now fatherless, but after this trial, they may lose their mother as well. That's my opening statement on this Wednesday. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Your Honor, and so based on that, we have never gotten any notice from the prosecution, and that is clearly an inconsistent statement with the statement that she gave. The prosecution has never provided us. This is clear under Brady. It's clear under Michael Morton that if this is the first time that I'm hearing of this in a trial of this magnitude is when she testified on the stand about it. And so if she did report these things to the prosecution, we were entitled to that to prepare for this. And this is a trial by ambush.
In Texas, will there be a mistrial in the Uvalde school massacre case? The judge is going to be hearing arguments about teacher Stephanie Hale's testimony. She got on the stand and she shared some information that wasn't disclosed to the defense. So we'll see what happens when court gets underway at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. In Kentucky, we have got the widow of Judge Kevin Mullins appearing in court for the first time. Kimberly Mullins filed a civil lawsuit against former Sheriff Mickey Steins, who's accused of murdering her husband. Court's going to get underway at 9 a.m. Eastern. And defendant Nick Reiner. His arraignment is set to happen in California this morning at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. He's accused of murdering his parents, Rob and Michelle Reiner. Right now, we turn to your top story. Could a professional hitman have been the one to kill Ohio dentist Spencer Tepe and his wife, Monique? So the killer, whoever he or she is still on the loose this morning. And now family members are reacting to the video that Columbus police released this week. Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law appeared with our friend Ashley Banfield on her show on News Nation. Take a look.
when I first saw it, yeah, I do think, suspicious looking person there. It also very well could be, somebody walking home drunk from a bar. But it's evidence nonetheless that hasn't been released until now, and it's good that they're kind of progressing through this.
Now, we know some of the chilling clues that could point to the killer, like the code to the house, and the phone calls, those 911 calls. So investigators say they found no signs of forced entry at this home, and we know that the couple had a digital keypad lock on their front door. So leads us to believe that somebody had to have known that code to get in. Also, many 911 calls were placed in the minutes leading up to the discovery of the bodies. Now, Spencer Tepe's boss placed a call for a welfare check at 9 a.m. This was roughly about an hour after the dental practice opened up for business. So let's talk about who may have carried this out. Was this a murder for hire plot of some sort? Was this some kind of professional who did this hit? Let's talk about it with our professionals. Our guest this morning, retired NYPD detective and Sergeant Dan Murphy. He's also the co-host of the Gold Shield Show. And retired NYPD detective and Professor Mike Alcazar. Good morning to you both. Detective Murphy, I'll begin with you, please. Your thoughts on whether this could have been done by a professional?
Well, let's start with the first premise, which is that across the board, homicide is typically a crime of acquaintance. People know each other when they kill each other, unless it is a random robbery or something of that nature. That is far less the case. More often than not, it's a crime of acquaintance. People know each other. Now, digging into the lives of these people will tell the detectives a lot. What's on their phones? Who are they in touch with? Who's in their life? This certainly could have been a hit by a professional based upon the fact that it was so calculated. There was no evidence of robbery. There was no evidence of forced entry. Everything about it was smoother. The children weren't harmed. This was targeted towards them. However, I think it's premature to say that it might be a professional hitman. Whoever it is was very calculated, though.
Yes, great insight, Detective Sergeant. I want to share a few more details that we have received from police in Columbus working this case. We know that there were 3 9mm spent shell casings found in the family home. There were also no signs of forced entry, as we already mentioned, and no firearm found at the scene, so investigators quickly ruled out that this was a murder-suicide. Spencer was 37, Monique was 39, and investigators narrowed the window between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. They think they were killed on the top floor of the home sometime in the 3-hour window. Detective Alcazar, the one thing that I keep thinking about is how the killer left behind the spent casings. Do you think it could have been a semi-professional? Would a true professional have done that? Have you ever seen that in your years of service? Talk to us here, please.
Yeah, I agree with the sergeant that you definitely won't rule out if it's a professional hit, but it is kind of wonky that if this is a professional, it's unusual that they would leave the spent shells, laying in the crime scene. So to me, it sounds like perhaps this person wasn't a professional. Maybe there was a little bit of panic when he executed the couple, and he was just hurried and leaving the scene. So the detectives, of course, are going to process the scene. There's going to be a ton of evidence that they have to gather and process in this crime scene, and I think that's what they're doing right now. A lot of the investigators are keeping their cards close to their vest, not releasing a lot of information, of course, leaving us with a lot of speculation.
Right. Sarge, I want to go back to you. Something I'm stuck on, in addition to the casings, is how there were no neighbors that heard gunshots or called 911 when this happened. And those homes are pretty close together there, which also makes me wonder if this was a professional. Did they use a silencer? What do you think about that fact, please?
Well, it's always a possibility of a silencer. It's always a possibility that a small caliber handgun doesn't make that much noise. And at 2 to 5 a.m. in the morning, when people are asleep, there's a good chance that they might have confused it with the backfire of a truck delivering something or picking up garbage. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is that it didn't wake other people up, which means that the type of weapon used, and I don't know the caliber, I apologize for that. It's likely that it either was suppressed in some way or that simply the caliber was small enough it didn't make enough noise to penetrate the walls and wake someone up on the other side of other walls.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sergeant. Yeah, I have it right here, 9 millimeter. So could be small.
Enough.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, 9 millimeter is typically loud enough. I would say somebody would have heard it, but depends upon who's home next door, how deeply they sleep, what the level of insulation, et cetera, is in the house that might muffle the sound. There's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that insight. I want to play a clip here. This is, again, from Rob Misley, who is Spencer Tepe's brother. And he went on the, brother-in-law. Forgive me, brother-in-law. He went on Ashley Banfield's show on News Nation Banfield last night. Let's take a listen to what he said about the children.
We've had them with us for the past couple of days. They're with some other relatives at the moment. And they were just as, happy and unfortunately unaware as they ever could be. But they're in loving hands. I don't think that they saw what happened, or at least I want to believe that with my heart.
Oh my gosh, it's so heartbreaking. Detective Alcazar, I want to go to you on this. So the 1-year-old, obviously, police can't talk to the 1-year-old. The 4-year-old, could a 4-year-old have some valuable information? What do you say?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have a 4-year-old niece, and she's sharp as a wit. She could describe people, identify people that are housed by name. So it's definitely something that they'll have to look into, talking to this child, of course, carefully. You don't want to re-traumatize a child. But, yeah, children are very observant, and I'm sure she'll have some recollection who was in the house if let's say, the fact this person is someone they knew, or she might have heard something, or she might have saw something.
Yeah, definitely. And how about the 911 calls? So many happening in the morning when, this practice opens up at 8 a.m. Apparently, it was this doctor's habit to go in on time, and everybody was very panicked, by 9 a.m. Detective Sergeant Murphy, tell me, do you see that as a little weird, or do you think it could be perfectly normal?
It could be perfectly normal. It seems to me that this person was a creature of habit, and at his dental practice, he was typically on time and on spot. Now, for this to be something that stands out this much is an indication of just how rigid of a lifestyle this person lived, which is helpful in cases like this, because had he not been so rigid, perhaps no one would have thought to do a welfare check for a while. However, the children crying does sound to me like somebody would have heard that eventually. But it may seem to some to be unusual. However, people's habits vary. In this case, they knew this guy well enough to know that he's not in, he hasn't called. Let's go check on him.
Yeah, it's so heartbreaking. We'll keep the conversation going. A big thank you to you both, Sergeant Dan Murphy, Detective Mike Alcazar. Thank you for your service and your insight this morning. Friends at home, you can call Central Ohio Crime Stoppers. The number is on your screen. If you have any information about this case, please share it. Still to come here on Opening Statements for you, our coverage rolls on the killer who's on the loose in Ohio. We've got a body language expert joining us a little later in the program to talk about the surveillance video. And inside the world of Jodi Hildebrandt, we're going. It's a scary place, and a new Netflix documentary is exploring the manipulation tactics used by the convicted child abuser.
I don't know what's going to happen with what I say. I'm a psychologist. I've watched people flip things all the time. So I get it. And I sit on your side.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Ms. Hildebrandt, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And to count 3, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
To count 5, aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony?
Guilty. And to count 6, also aggravated child abuse, a second-degree felony.
Guilty.
Ruby Franke's former business partner, Jodi Hildebrandt, is the focus of a new documentary on Netflix detailing the controversial practices of the once respected therapist.
He rang my doorbell and asked me to call the police.
Does he seem to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol?
I don't think so. But he has duct tape around each ankle. Yeah, there's sores around them, I think.
The Evil Influencer, the Jodi Hildebrandt story, released last month on Netflix and quickly becoming a big hit with interviews from several of her former clients. Franke and Hildebrandt created parenting content on a popular YouTube channel spearheaded by Hildebrandt's counseling business. Both are currently serving long prison sentences for aggravated child abuse, ranging from 4 to 60 years. But they aren't expected to serve more than 30 due to Utah state law. So do you think that Jodi Hildebrandt was perhaps the mastermind behind the abuse? Let's talk about that. So pleased to have back on the show forensic psychologist Dr. Leslie Dobson. Dr. Leslie, good morning to you. Happy New Year.
Hi.
Oh, this doc, I watched it last night, the level of depravity here, it's hard to even wrap your mind around. What does it take for human beings to go to this level, to abuse helpless, innocent children?
I think we have a combination of horrible, sadistic personality traits and a history of trauma and a desire for vengeance. I mean, I think we have so many different psychological failures in this woman that led to her doing this, and this huge focus on money, power, authority, hurting men, and just taking over the world. But added to that, we have some type of sincere religious psychosis. I look at this as kind of a Lori Daybell marries Charles Manson image, but I also wholly hold Ruby accountable because she's an adult and engaged in this as well, even if she was in coercive control or manipulated.
Right. They're both 100% wrong, Dr. Leslie, both of them. A despicable conduct. And some people wonder, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it Jodi who influenced Ruby to do the child abuse? Was Ruby already abusing her children? Folks who watch The 8 Passengers know that her parenting techniques were always controversial. What do you think? How much influence do you think was there being exerted by Jodi Hildebrandt on her friend Ruby Franke?
It didn't appear to me that the abuse would go to the extreme levels, like buying a home or land in Arizona and getting the kids to work tractors. That was their future plan. It didn't appear to me like it would have gone there if Jodi hadn't stepped in. So Jodi brought a layer of evilness and vengeance and that religious psychosis, and then manipulated Ruby's large platform and her vulnerability to want to be this authoritative, controlling, also kind of religious psychosis was present. So she manipulated that. And then it just became this perfect couple of a complete and horrible abuse.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go back to sentencing. Jodi Hildebrandt had this to say before the court imposed her punishment.
I sincerely love these children. I desire for them to heal physically and emotionally. One of the reasons I did not go to trial is that I did not want them to emotionally relive the experience which would have been detrimental to them. My hope and prayer is that they will heal and move forward to have beautiful lives. I am willing to submit to what the state feels would be an appropriate amount of time served to make retribution as an outcome.
Oh, she's crying there. Dr. Leslie, in the doc, she's cool as a cucumber when she gets arrested.
Yeah, she's cool as a cucumber. She lies through her teeth. She flips it over. She says she's just like the police officers. She's a psychologist. She is manipulating everyone. And no, after being so dangerous for so long, you don't just all of a sudden wake up. When you have that level of severity, you don't wake up and say, okay, I'm sorry. I hope these kids heal. No, she told that police officer to keep those kids away from people because the devil was inside of them. She is manipulating to get a lower sentence, to get out, and also probably because she wants to be famous again when she's out.
Right. Yeah, these two yo-yos are infamous now. A couple takeaways. That compound to hers. I'm looking at this house going, what's this woman do? She's a counselor, and apparently she was making $50,000 a month through her counseling work. Okay. We know that there were some accounting books that were found in the big search that went about 46 clients per month. Yeah, she was making bank. Doing this job. Connections is what they called it. She also lived pretty far away from Ruby Franke. They show in the documentary, like, it's not close. It takes a long time to drive from house to house. It's not like they were just across town from one another, and she had plans to drop off the kids in a desert before her arrest. That's nice. We know that one of Ruby Franke's journal entries talked about how the escalation of the kids is not manageable here. Ruby Franke was stupid enough to journal the child abuse she was committing. Yeah, there's so much more. Dr. Leslie, when I was watching this, one of the things that jumped out at me was how they had go bags. And the detectives were saying Ruby and Jodi were ready to bolt as soon as they might have gotten wind that police were onto them. What's that say to you psychologically?
Well, it tells me that they are competent, that they knew what they were doing was wrong to some degree, and they had a plan to go. And part of me is very suspicious of their sexual relationship, and maybe the plan was also to run away and be lesbian lovers that they tried to hide so much. But that all plays into this delusion and awareness at the same time. So not guilty by reason of insanity, not a thing here, right? They knew what they were doing was wrong, and they had a plan when they were caught. So they had this awareness, yet they were still brutally abusing these children. They're horrible human beings.
Right. Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, and Dr. Leslie, you hit on it. A lot of people speculate about whether they had this relationship, and it's like, well, then go ahead, get a divorce, Ruby Franke, leave the children out of it, go do your thing, you two, leave these kids alone. These poor kids, the way they were tortured, I mean, truly tortured, it's unspeakable. Dr. Leslie, final thoughts in terms of, can they change, they're in prison for a long time, are they gonna change their behavior?
I don't have a lot of hope for them, no. I think if you're looking at the psychopathy inventory and you're looking at different assessments for personality disorders and these severe actions and behaviors that they did, I would say that they are heterogeneous in their diagnoses, where over time they're going to stay pretty much the same. And then given the opportunity to do it again, I think they would grab on pretty quickly. This was very severe, long-standing, pervasive abuse, and sincerely they played into it. And they believed it even before Jodi got to Rudy. So I'm pretty hopeless with any treatment for the severity of these personality disorders that are likely present in these women.
Yeah, definitely. A great insight from you as always, Dr. Leslie Dobson. I always enjoy following you on social. Friends at home, give her a follow. We'll see you soon back here on Opening Statements. Coming up next, here's what we have got.
Rob Reiner was a brilliant actor and director. His wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, was an equally iconic photographer and producer. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Nick Reiner expected in court in just a few hours for his arraignment in California. We'll talk about what we expect to happen. And we're breaking down the body language of that person of interest in the murders of an Ohio dentist and his wife.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. Those need to be thoroughly, but very carefully dealt with.
Nick Reiner is expected in court today for his arraignment. He's accused of murdering his parents, famed director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Reiner. That's where our spotlight is this morning. For the first time since his arrest, Nick Reiner is reportedly no longer on suicide watch. He also does not have to wear the anti-suicide smock that we saw him wearing at his first court appearance. Sources tell us, though, that he will be closely monitored and housed alone. He's been held at the Twin Towers Correctional Facility in downtown Los Angeles since he was arrested back on December 15th. Authorities say that he killed his parents after an argument at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. The LA County District Attorney has yet to decide whether to pursue the death penalty. So let's talk about how this case is rocking Hollywood and the nation. I want to bring in now the host of No Filter with Zach Peter. Zach Peter is joining us from California, and trial attorney and the host of the Cup of Justice podcast, Eric Bland. Good morning to you both. Happy New Year. Zach, I want to begin with you and talk about the buzz in Hollywood, and then we're going to get to some of the legal factors to be considered today with Eric. So, Zach, in terms of what everyone is saying now, you know, we're a little bit out from the incident in question. Are people still reeling?
Yeah, we just saw Chelsea Handler hosting the Critics' Choice Awards, and she paid a beautiful tribute in her opening monologue, which, you know, every comedian that hosts their opening monologue is riddled with jokes. But in this case, and I think you could even sense the trepidation when she brought the Reiners up. Like, is she going to make a joke about this? But I think she made a really beautiful tribute about what Rob and Michelle meant to everybody in Hollywood. And I think it's still pretty somber. I think it's obviously very sensitive given the murder came at the hands of their own son. But I think, you know, people in their circle knew of the issues that they had with Nick for quite some time. So people are still really feeling it right now.
Yeah, definitely, Zach. And those issues, we know he struggled with substance abuse for many years. We know homelessness as well he struggled with, sadly. Eric, I want to play for you this clip. This is from a podcast called the Dopey Podcast. And you'll hear Nick Reiner talk about how he says that he once faked being crazy in order to get meds.
How'd you get Wellbutrin? Did it cop it on the street? The way I got Wellbutrin is actually really fun. I was at a Lena Lodge, and I don't know if I told this last week, but they refused to give me meds. So to prove I was crazy, because they were like, "You don't need any meds," and I was like freaking out. And I was like, "You don't think I need meds?" And they're like, "Yeah, we think you're just all up to an act here, and this is all just fake." And I said, "Okay."
Eric Bland, we know that today he's going to enter his plea, and it could be a plea, as you know, of not guilty by reason of insanity. If you're his counsel and you know this comment is out there where he's talking about faking being crazy, how concerned might you be about that coming back to haunt you at trial?
Very concerned. I think he'll enter a plea of not guilty. I don't think they'll go so far as to say not guilty by reason of insanity. I think they're going to have to really think long and hard about that. I think the key for this case for the prosecution is what happened at the Conan O'Brien party a couple days or a day before the killing, because the parents wouldn't have taken him to that party or let him go if he was acting in an irrational manner. Something triggered him and his father having that fight. And, you know, I always feel for when children kill parents or parents kill children. It's a tragic case. But the history of the relationship is going to be first and foremost. And I think the Conan O'Brien party is going to be a key.
Definitely. Eric, you're so right. Zach Peter, let's talk about that more. Are we hearing more celebrities speaking out about it?
I think everyone right now is trying to stay as far away from it as possible. We had a few of the initial statements that came out from like Billy Crystal and Larry David. But as of right now, I feel like everyone wants to stay away from it because of the sensitive nature with Nick Reiner and obviously trying to be respectful to the two other children that are also involved. But aside from paying their tributes to the Reiners, it doesn't seem like anybody else wants to touch this situation right now in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. Right, Zach. Eric, we know that this case could become a capital case by law. We know that the district attorney could potentially pursue that. Whether he will or not is another story. I want you to weigh in on that. What do you think we're going to see, please, and why?
I don't know whether they're going to go for the death penalty. There's been so much history that the public knows now about Nick's behavioral problems, plus his drug and substance alcohol problems. The parents did everything they could. I read that they had sent him to 17 different facilities. And of course, Rob Reiner helped him do his movie with his son in 2016. I don't see this as a death penalty case, but I definitely see it as a plea and him serving, a full life sentence. I don't see an insanity defense working in this. It's just so sad when you see the lengths that the parents went to and the exasperation they must have felt. There's a public persona of what your family looks like, and then when those doors close, it gets really, really dicey.
That's right. The other children, I know we're all thinking about them this morning. Rob Reiner has a daughter from his marriage to Penny Marshall, an adopted daughter, and then had 3 children with his wife, Michelle. And so there's another son and another daughter from that marriage, and I'm sure this is horrific for all of them. Zach, what are we hearing about those children and how they're moving forward?
I'm hearing Romy's having the toughest time with it. Obviously, she's the one that found her parents. She made the initial call to Billy Crystal before authorities came over. And it seems like, I know there's been some speculation of how Alex Jackson came into the involvement. Were the siblings, somehow involved in trying to help their brother? I imagine they're really conflicted right now. I mean, they have to grieve the loss of their parents while also having to accept the fact that this was done at the hands of their brother, Nick. And from what we're hearing, their childhood was pretty tumultuous as well. We're hearing that they had concerns about Nick. Romy specifically, I know, there have been reports that say that she lived in fear of her brother and, wasn't entirely surprised when she found her parents. But I can imagine they're really rattled right now, especially with all of the public speculation and people trying to put these pieces together. There's so much public attention that I would imagine they're just trying to lay as low as they can and get through this as best as they can, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, you're right, Zach. Gosh, our hearts go out to them. You mentioned Alan Jackson, who is representing Nick Reiner. We saw him most recently represent defendant Karen Reed. He represented defendant Harvey Weinstein, defendant Kevin Spacey. So he's no stranger to high-profile cases. Eric Bland, and neither are you. I want to play a clip. This is Mark Garagos, another high-profile attorney on CNN, talking about what he thinks Alan Jackson may do. Garagos, of course, practices in California for a long time. That's where Alan Jackson is based. Let's take a listen to what he told CNN.
I'm going to bet you, I don't have any inside information, that AJ has already hired at least 2 psychiatrists. I would believe not just that a not guilty by reason of insanity plea is in the works, but they put over the arraignment, because I believe what is happening is that it's entirely possible that Alan is going to declare a doubt as to the competency of Nick Reiner.
Ooh, that's a good point. Eric, so competency is, separate and apart from any not guilty by reason of insanity defense that we may see later. What do you think about that possibility today? Do you think that Alan Jackson may come to court with him and say he's not even competent to enter a plea?
He might. It just depends on, what, if he's already hired these psychiatrists, what affidavits he has already. I think that he's got a really uphill battle on this one because of the shocking nature of the crime. And, that Conan O'Brien party, I think, again, is going to be key on what the interactions were. People wanted to call 911 at that party, and Conan O'Brien persuaded them not to. Something was a trigger. Again, they wouldn't have brought him to the party or permitted him to go if it was a situation where that day he had destroyed the guest house. There's a couple of allegations where he's destroyed it on a number of occasions. Something triggered it. I just don't see. I think he's just going to enter a plea of not guilty at this time. It's too tall of a mountain right now to lay out an insanity or a competency type of situation, especially when he's taken off suicide watch.
Appreciate your thoughts. We'll leave it here for now. And of course, this afternoon, we're going to be covering that hearing. Thank you to Zach Peter and Eric Bland. And thank you for being with us at home. We're going to hit a break. Up next on Opening Statements, we got a killer on the loose in Ohio. We have a body language expert joining us live to break down the surveillance footage.
This is the Court TV podcast.
There's a body. Our friend wasn't answering his phone. We just did go on a ship. We just came here, and he appears dead. Okay. There's blood. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed, and there's blood.
As the manhunt continues this morning for the person of interest in the murders of an Ohio dentist and his wife, we're asking the question, could the surveillance footage tip the scales? Investigators say no weapons were found in the home and there were no signs of forced entry. Here are the victims, Spencer and Monique Tepe. Both died from apparent gunshot wounds. This was just 2 days before the new year. So we were a week out, more than a week out from when this killing occurred. And here's the person of interest, so police say, caught on a neighbor's Nest cam walking down the street. This is right in the window of time between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. that police believe the homicides occurred. So are there any clues with this video? What about this suspect's body language? Let's bring in body language expert and author Susan Constantine to take a look at it for us. Susan, good morning and Happy New Year. You've been studying the footage. Let's put it up on the screen and we'll have you tell us what you're seeing.
Sure. So what I'm looking for is his gait, his stride, and his movements. Also, and how much adrenaline is actually going through his body will tell you how quick his steps are going to be. So when I'm looking at his body language, we see him head down, he's concealing. Keep in mind, it's cold outside, so he's probably got his head down because it's cold. But the fact that he's concealed his appearance, this in itself is what we call suspicious. But then again, you would see that on the street anyway, right, when it's cold outside. Here's the remarkable things to point out. When you see him walking on his right shoulder, you can see it kind of pop up on the right side. It's kind of that rolling, rocking movement. That's remarkable, okay? So that's something that what I call like his signature or his normal move. That's something to point out. The other thing is that what I'm looking at is his walk, right? So there's nothing what I would call remarkable in his stride. In other words, I'm not seeing a foot kick out. I'm not seeing a knee pop in. He's very parallel. The other thing is that I'm looking at his body proportions, you know, how he's actually fitted and knitted together. He appears to be a little on the longer torso, shorter legged. So that in itself, in that body proportion, is something to look for. The other thing is I would, of course, I'm sure that law enforcement are already doing this, is the breakdown, you know, that coat, the type of jeans, the type of shoes or boots that he's wearing to determine, you know, who is the maker of it. But that kind of rocking movement that he has, that is something you can't change, Julie. This is baked in his DNA.
Boy, that's interesting, Susan. Yeah, so you said for us to draw our attention to, he'd be his right shoulder. And we're going to keep playing this. Tell us where exactly you see him.
See it right there. See it pop up right there. 1, 2. See, like that. So he kind of, when he's walk, he actually has this almost cocky movement. And you see that right shoulder popping up. So that's remarkable because not everybody walks like that. So that's what we're looking for. When I look at body language, I'm looking at these remarkable features in their overall demeanor. And that you can point out because in everyday life when he's walking around or in a store, that doesn't change. That's it. That's his movement, right? I know people that I've known that you could identify who they are just by looking at the way they walk from behind them. It's the same thing. Someone needs to find this out, you know, who walks like that. So he doesn't seem to appear to be frazzled or overwhelmed. He's very much in control. This is someone that can actually close down those adrenalines and be very methodical, right? His movements are not remarkable. And that's what's remarkable. They're unremarkable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So just because there's something not there doesn't mean there's something not there. So when we look at, and I busted so many between robbers and murderers, with just on their movement or their foot placement that is unusual, like whether they're pigeon-toed or their knee pops in or they roll their hip. All those things are really important pieces to identifying who this person is. And if someone can identify someone that is similar to them in their sphere of influence.
Right. So this is fascinating. So one question I was talking about with the detectives was how it's really hard to know if this guy's carrying a weapon because of that big coat. And so, of course, that's in my mind. Is this person carrying? Asking you the same question, the movements with the right shoulder, sometimes in my experience from being a prosecutor reading hundreds and hundreds of reports, that the detectives, would found, a lot of times people get jittery. They tend to check, they check their waistband or wherever they're carrying, especially when they're carrying illegally. So that thought kind of just popped in my mind as you were talking about watching him on the right.
Yeah, that's a very good point, though, too. And you see him kind of, he's trying to conceal himself because he's pushing his hat down because he doesn't want anybody to notice who he is. And to your point, yes, but you would also see some movement underneath that coat. So if he's trying to keep something still or in control, close to his body, you might see some movement of his hands underneath this coat. But you can see it's the very odd shape that is almost in his torso, below, like underneath his belly, kind of protrudes out. He doesn't have what we call a barrel chest. He's actually very fit, right? But and you can see him kind of narrowed hip too in the back. But when you saw him from the front, that pouch was down lower, almost like there was something underneath there, or his hands underneath there that is actually pushing it outward.
Right. Yeah. So I guess bottom line, he could absolutely have a firearm underneath that big coat. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Well, this is really something, and I always pay attention to what we're not hearing. And this is, we're not hearing about anyone in Columbus coming forward to police saying, you know what, that's me. And that was just me walking late at night because I was doing X, Y, and Z. You don't have to worry about me, So that tells me they may be onto something with this person if you don't have someone else coming and saying, you got the wrong guy, this was just an innocent walk when it's cold out. Yeah. What do you think, Susan? Final thoughts?
It very well could be. To me, when I see body language, stride, movement, gait, all those things are so important to me. That's what I study. I can't determine his height because when you look at the surrounding environment where the doors are and so forth, he's too far away from it to be able to determine his height. Although he does pass a car by. See, these are things that are really important because you can actually measure a person's body language or body height based on proportional measurements of things in the scene, doors, concrete, right? Those bricks or a car or even those trash cans. All that will give you a height of that person.
Boy, that's really helpful. Susan Constantine, we could talk to you all day. We got to let you go, but thank you for the great insight this morning. Let's hope this person is caught. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.